Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time and welcome to the Lunch and Learn series. As you have known, we've been running these Lunch and Learn series for almost 3 months now. The idea is we want to bring together the entire SAP ecosystem and the innovation that is being unleashed in the SAP ecosystem together in one single platform. What I've been trying to do is to bring partners, startups, SAP teams, and customers together on the same platform to talk about the innovation that they are unleashing in the world using SAP technologies. So we've seen customers like Asian Paints, customers like EPL, like HMEL talk about how they've done digital transformation within their organization. We've had multiple experts from SAP, for example, talk about enterprise product development, talk about multi-WAN connectivity, talk about some of the service offerings. We've had many partners talk about their solutions which are built or on top of SAP technologies or are certified by SAP, and how they kind of drive digital transformation, help drive digital transformation in your organization. We've also had several startups. If I remember correctly, we've had 9 startups so far who showcased their single-minded focus on solving one particular issue using SAP technology for you, so that you can deploy these technologies and drive innovation within your organization. In that series, I'm really happy to welcome Amey from Infosys. He will take us through how Infosys is able to help customers drive digital in your organization, drive innovation in your organization, specifically around experiences. And then we'll have a conversation around it. So, Amey, if I can ask you to quickly introduce yourself and take it away, please.
Sure, Mukesh. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this opportunity. So my name is Amey Patwardhan, and I'm part of Infosys. I primarily work with SAP COE. My background, I'm SAP functional consultant, and with 17 plus years of both IT domain experiences. And I'm accompanied here with my manager, Palani Shankar, who heads SAP COE, and also head of finance vertical. So he looks after both things. And pretty much supported by the entire COE team. So that's how we are aligned. Let me quickly get started. Any quick point, Palani, before we get started?
No, go ahead, Amey. Go ahead, yeah. I'll chip in.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Okay, so today, as part of this Learn at Lunch session, the topic that we are picking up is enhancing experiences for our engagements with Infosys Live Enterprise. So that's our broader topic. And how do we do that? We'll see that more into subsequent slides. But the focus area here would be more of how do we leverage this SAP certified solutions. Right? So that is how we have aligned this particular webinar. And we'll be talking about the overall approach and also the different tool sets. So that is the focus that we'll be looking at. But before we get into that, a quick introduction to Infosys. So we'll not get into much of this, just for your reference that Infosys is a pioneer in software services, and we've been partnered with SAP for last 21 years. And you can see the numbers, right? That speaks for itself. But our aim is to help customers in various purview of how we make them digital, how we take them to the next level, and so on. So that's our overall perspective, and that's how we are numbered. So you can see the strength of Infosys, 21,000 plus strong consulting strength and 600 plus clients. That's the variety of clients and strength of people that we bring in to help our engagement. Okay, that's briefly how we started and how we stand and so on. But just to tell what SAP COE does, our COE focuses on different AMS engagements, and we are basically people who bring in the best practices to the table and help our engagements to move to the next level. Right? So that's our overall goal. We try to be the differentiator in the market with our offerings, and we'll be talking about the framework and overall approach that I mentioned earlier. So moving on to next, just quickly understanding what is happening today and what challenges or what customers need to rethink at. Primarily evolving technology, evolving faster need of deploying solutions, and different business model evolving from AMS perspective. What is that is changing, right? So definitely a cost is something in terms of how do I deploy solution to how do I fail early. But more of how do I enhance the overall experience for the business and how do I future-proof the operations, right? These are the primary goals that are objectives of any organizations looking to move on, right? With different technological evolutions and technologies coming into picture. So how do we go about doing it, right? That's the biggest question, right? That's where we bring in our AMS framework called as Value Plus. Value Plus AMS framework. It's a hard earned knowledge of 6 to 7 years through which understanding different organizations, how they are behaving, what are their different strategies. We have put up best practices as well as we have come up with the guidelines and principles saying how a particular organization and its characteristics should persist in order to call it as a best-in-class AMS. Right? So that's our complete goal, and we want to take our customers there, for which we have built a solution pathways. We call them as solution pathways, uh, specifically to name reliable and resilient IT, digital experience. How do we elevate the overall digital experience of the business, and how do we bring in the business agility? These are the three typical solution pathways that we have put in. Now, when we look at digital reliable IT, we see how we can bring in more self-heal, and how do we bring in more learning nature into our solutions that will help the IT businesses, right? So uh, making solutions more proactive rather than keeping them reactive, making those tool sets more intelligent and helping make system resilient rather than doing a firefighting. So that's where this reliable and resilient IT comes into the picture, and these are some of the guidelines that we look at. When it is a digital experience, we say that how we can bring in more of a business-centric evolution. How do we make the systems more conversational in nature? How do we give them right help, right solution where they need it? Right. That's the empowerment that we look at, and business agility is more from how do we put more focus on what business is looking at, what are the different solutions that we can bring from their perspective and make them more intelligent rather than giving some past historical information. So that is how these pillars are aligned, and these are based on our live enterprise principle. So what are live enterprise principle? Basically, a system should inhibit principles of a living organism. Just like living organism can sense, understand what is happening around, and then make a decision. and continuously evolve itself. That is, these are the principles of a living organism, and same are the principles that have been conceptualized into live enterprise, wherein we sense, analyze, decode, act, and learn. Right. So it's a continuous learning process, and improving day by day. So this is the framework that has been put in place. But does that mean it's only the guidelines or approach that comes into the picture? Well, really not. So with this guidelines, we basically see how we can navigate our customers using certain tool sets, right? So there will be some approach as well as certain tool sets that will support each of these pathways, solution pathways. So you can see that these pathways, you can see number of solutions being put in place. It's some of the, and again, we don't restrict here to something that only Infosys has built. We also look at retrospectively what is available with customer. We don't want to introduce a new solution unless it is a white space with the customer, right? So that is our overall approach and mindset to bring in different solutions and tool sets to help each of these pathways. Okay. So an asterisk, red asterisk, which you'll notice, these are some of the solutions that we have either certified or some of them are in progress to get certified, and they help us in driving each of these pathways. Right? So, for example, Live Enterprise Application Platform, short form is LEAP. This is our digital intelligent brain platform, which not only does AI-based assessment, but it also helps you in automating some of the processes, right? So be it from IT perspective or something that is going to focus more onto business, it can cut through all of these lenses and help in achieving the goals put forth for each of these pathways. Okay, so or maybe it's an Infosys transition manager, understand the in-depth assessment of SAP system, what are the nitty-gritties of the processes, and bring in more value to understand for faster transition, faster evolution of evaluation of what processes are going to be impacted, what kind of testing I need to do, right? All these aspects bring in, and then at the end, I look at the matrices, how do I look in terms of getting there. All that aspect get encapsulated into this solution, which helps us to faster our transition. Right? Or a batch job monitoring solution, or ISMS solution. So these are some of the solutions that we have been putting together more from the reliable AMS perspective. From digital experience perspective, like I talked about, how do we understand the process flows, the nitty-gritties of the process flow, and make systems more conversational, bring in more persona-specific approach. That's where you'll see different tools aligned here from that perspective, deep diving into how the processes look like or making them conversational. So this is where you can see our solution of IA, Infosys Enterprise Assistant, Infosys Business Assist, where they try to help business user uh, through some self-service and self-help method. So that's how these solutions are involved. Or bringing in more business agility in terms of getting a financial closure solution, which will fast track the overall closure process, highlight what are my bottlenecks, see if I am able to streamline them early in the time, how I'm looking at the matrices of overall closure. These are some of the key highlights, and that's how each of these things are highlighted, aligned to the solution pathways. Okay, so these are different solutions. This is just to give a gist that what all things we are doing, but we'll be looking at two solutions out of this for today's session. We'll go a little deeper into that and see how they can help. So this is a typical vision or viewpoint from our side onto how one method to enhance the business user experience. Uh, it's depicted through this overall flow, right? So typically, when we look at a business user having certain help needed, what are the typical problems and what overall flow he takes in order to get a resolution, how much time it will take, right? So end-to-end process time, and what are the difficulties faced in each of these places, both for IT as well as business. So looking at this, how do we help everyone, right? All the stakeholders, not just seeing the business, but even the IT, and many times providing half information also impacts how IT responds to it, right? So uh, these are the some of the uh, dependencies that will drive how the solution is delivered or how overall process is executed. So we'll not get into a lot of details here because this is something I'll again conclude at the end. But overall flow starting with business, getting help in a self-help mode, saying that okay, these are some of the things that business can do. If those things are not sufficient enough for business to understand, can he get a help from IT, and then how IT can get help uh, from the solution at that, right? So this is how overall flow will look like. Let's drill down into solution one, which is IA, and then we'll see little bit of solution two, and then we'll again come back to flow to now correlate that what we discussed. So let's go into IA. So IA is nothing but Infosys Enterprise Assistant, and why is that needed, right? So uh, our experience tells that there are several questions in mind of customers. As typically, when we look at SAP customers, how my data is going to be used, what is the different you know additional tools or additional skill sets that I need to bring. How do I make it irrespective of what technology it's available, right? So how do I integrate with my existing communication channels? So these are some of the typical questions that come into the customer's mind, and many times a single solution doesn't help, and there has to be something very specific to SAP solution. That's where our IA like solution comes into the picture. So Infosys Enterprise Assistant, it basically uh, uh, a conversational technique or conversational solution that is uh, that sits very much onto your SAP solution. It's encarved into your solution, and then it takes away the most questions that have been asked during initial times, right? So from data privacy, how do we make sure that who is taking an action on the particular activity, how technologically I'll be able to adopt it, and so on, right? All these questions go away because it uses all the existing SAP technologies that will be available with the customer, right? So it doesn't need any additional infrastructure and any additional technological components, unless of course we want to go for integrations, like for example we want to integrate with Microsoft Teams, or we want to integrate with WhatsApp, and so on, right? So if you want to open up these channels for communication, that's where these additional components come into the picture. But it's if we look at typical on-premise environment, there is nothing more needed other than this. Okay. The concept here, very simple. It basically makes an intelligent decision to call different intents one by one, similar to any other conversational techniques. But here it seamlessly integrates with SAP. So if I want to take an action on particular transaction, I'm able to do that. Okay. And then that is something very simple, right? So easy configuration, centralized module to configure it, sits on your SAP, helps use the NLP technique and fuzzy technique to identify what is the real intent behind, and it sits everywhere, right? Be it S4, be it ECC, it can help everywhere. These are some of the salient features of IA. What I'll do is I'll quickly take a demo for everyone to see and understand how IA looks like. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is how IA looks like. This is not hosted right now anywhere, but once it is hosted, it will come as a small window over here. You can just call it whenever needed, and then basically you'll be able to converse with it, right? So let's take an example here. We have a simple, everyone can relate sales order. So you have sales order problems. Several times the sales orders confirmation is not received by the customer, and he's unable to understand that whether his order is getting delivered or not, right? So let's take a similar situation here. If you look at what I've done is I've created a sales order here in SAP system, wherein you can see here that it's not yet confirmed. So you can see that it's not confirmed. So which essentially means that unless it is confirmed, you will not get a confirmation. That customer won't get confirmation that a sales order is confirmed and the delivery date confirmed is so and so, and you can expect by then, right? So it's a typical problem of confirmations that are seen when it comes to orders. Now, what typical situation would be, right? A business user will have to get into multiple things before he comes to a conclusion, right? For example, if you look at here, there are several options to go for a particular plant, right? Then there could be issues with the quantity that is available. Am I looking for what are the different downstream impacts with that, right? So all these things are necessarily taken care by IA just by typing things like sales order not delivered, right? For example. Now this will essentially make me go anywhere, any device without worrying that whether I have to sit in front of my computer and show you everything. No, not needed. Now with mobile devices coming into picture, I can just look up my smartphone, bring up the app and ask these few questions, and it will be able to tell me and help me even taking the transactions at pace, right? So just now we saw this order 8475, and you can see that there is no sufficient quantity available in that plant. Ordered quantity 10, available 2, right? So system has gone into the system. It was able to understand cumulatively what is the quantity that I can commit, and it's not sufficient in that plant. So which essentially means and many times business do look at alternate, based on how strategically it's defined to create the alternative serve locations. You might have different locations available in case you want to serve the customer without any disruptions. So it's naturally saying whether should I go and look at an alternative plant. I'll say yes. So it has gone into the system again, did a lookup of different plants, and it was able to identify that PL03 is a plant where it is able to locate sufficient stock of quantity, and it will be able to make use of that in order to keep the order serviced, and there is no complaint from customer. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I can go with this plant. I know that my business decision has that I can go with this plant. I'm saying yes, and the moment I say yes, it will basically go into the SAP system and make an order change, and it will drop the order to plant PL03. Okay. So let's quickly go back into SAP system and see that. Okay, so let me open it again. Yeah, so you can see the quantity is now been confirmed, and you can see that plant has been dropped to PL03, which essentially means that my customer, this is something that was proposed by IA, and which essentially means that my customer will now get confirmation because my order line is confirmed for this date, and they'll receive the confirmation to their mailbox saying this is going to get delayed on this date, which essentially means they'll be happy. There will be no noise, right? So with conversational technique, I was able to utilize this solution to not just look at what is wrong in my system, but also take necessary action in the system, and very much configurable in my business. Right? So that is how IA helps. I'll quickly show how we integrate with how the integration with teams help us. Let me go into a video demo here. So this is where similarly, we look at vendor which is basically having a problem of how his payment is not been received, or a supplier who has not received his payment so far and is trying to get answers, right? So typically when he looks for answers, he'll basically get I'm sorry, I'm skipping a little bit so that I'm considering the time. So when he's looking for these answers, his typical point of contact will be account clerk, or someone from the help desk who can tell him that where his why his payment is not been made, and that's where this personas of account clerk, right? So you can see that AP desk clerk and purchasing managers and so on can come into picture, and how this seamless handshake can happen, right? So so account clerk is basically trying to understand if the payment is really not being made, right? It might happen that there's something problem on the bank side, which essentially could have caused this not to happen. But she wants to be sure that it's basically not something to do with external party. So she realizes that this is something got to do SAP. You can see that IA was able to confirm that there has been a invoice received, but the goods receipt has been not received, which is essentially means the payment is blocked, right? So it will not get released to vendor until the time this goods receipt problem is cleared. Now this is where your segregation of duty comes in, because your procurement manager has to look at what has gone wrong on the procurement side, and AP clerk won't be able to handle such things, right? So that's where now IA is suggesting whether it has to go to purchasing officer. Okay. So now the response purchasing officer, which essentially means that a purchasing officer should come into the picture. That's where now the persona changes, right? So we are actually switching the persona to a purchasing officer, and bringing in to how purchasing officer can look at this aspect. Again, similarly, without going into SAP system, he can look at the fact that there are some problems. Now he's trying to make a goods receipt. Now he's aware that goods receipt is not being done, but essentially it's not possible because of some downstream system. It could be a QAD system, it could be warehousing system or so on. That has created this kind of problem. So now this is where he hands it over to look at IT for seeing it, or it could be an automation to help that out. Right now, this is where the automation triggers in. So it's able to identify and classify the problem. It understood that the downstream system QAD got impacted, so it fixed that, and it will go into SAP system and also fix that. Right. So that's how the system is doing. It's automatically fixing the goods receipt now in SAP system, as well as it will go into the payments and it will remove the payment block. And this way, we have not just given a conversational way of uh, way of trying to do the business for business, trying to do operations for the business, but also see if we can self-fill the problem. Right? So not just say that there is a problem, but how do we solve it? Right? That's the key line here, and it has, you can see that it has gone and made the goods receipt, as well it is gone and removed the payment blocks. Right? So you can see both the things. The payment block is okay. Yeah. So that is how this is a solution that basically tries to help out for the with the help of conversational techniques. Right? So I'll move on. So the second solution that we basically I basically touch based a bit was on this Infosys Business Assist. So this solution basically is providing a self-help for business within SAP system, right? So what typically happens when there is a problem with business, they are not able to progress. They typically go to an SME requesting help in solving that particular problem. And if there is no agreement that this kind of problem should occur, they basically go and raise an incident for AMS team to look at. Right? That's the problem that we have tried to solve. Right? So we want to avoid the delays that are incurred because of these different handshakes that come in, and at the end, many times it's a problem that business themselves can solve. So it's not something that somewhere IT has to get involved, or somewhere this whole circle of ticket has to go through. So that's where Infosys Business Assist comes in picture. This is the typical scenario that happens, right? When the request is raised, there are different sources of reaching out. So whenever business reaches out to raising a request, they themselves can raise a request in many cases. In other cases, they basically call up a service desk saying, this is my problem and this is kind of thing. Now, there is a lot of barrier between the information that flows between how the business user is pursuing a problem and how actually it is created in the ITSM system. There's a whole lot of gap that is there, which does not tell where actually the problem has occurred, what were the other aspects around authorization, around the how step-by-step things were executed by business. All these aspects are unknown. For business, it's a problem because they have to switch between applications to go and look for a help or request. And for IT, it is a problem because there is a barrier of information and they have to go again back to the requester. And this causes sometimes a frustration level for both the parties involved, right? For business as well as the resolution group. So this is where IBA fits in, and what IBA does is IBA brings in two aspects. One is self-help. How does that happen? So based on the different standard operating practices, the knowledge articles, and the historical AI-based historical model, it can basically propose business user that these are the typical things that you'll do when this kind of problem occurs in the system. Right? So business has a ready guide in front of him to try out few things, and he may know that these are the top 5 things that I'll try out because this has been helpful in past for the other users. So they'll try those things out, or they can still go ahead and raise a request for IT. But the difference here comes is they don't have to leave the SAP system. They can do it right from within SAP system, which will capture all these different logs necessary for IT. Right now, we solve problem for business because they can try it themselves. Some of the things that they should solve themselves, know how kind of problems, and then we are solving the IT side of it, saying, okay, here you go with first-hand information, all the logs and so on, which will help you solve your problem faster. Right. So that way, we either try to eliminate the problem altogether before it is created, or we try to give utmost information that is necessary to solve the problem faster. Right? So we try to reduce the overall cycle time that is needed to basically solve the problem. Okay. So some of the salient features of this tool integrates with SharePoint to bring in the SOPs and some knowledge articles that could be lying there, or ITSM-based database knowledge articles and so on. It integrates with custom AI model. This is a model that we have built specifically for helping business with necessary information that they themselves can look at and solve the problem. And also integrates with creating incidents. So we basically go and create an incident in ITSM system and see where the status stands. So they don't have to leave SAP system for understanding what is happening on their problem. And so this is how we have the logs that we collected have basically been able to translate into the necessary steps and actions that were performed. So this gives me a pictorial view of understanding how business has been executing steps, and I'll be able to follow the steps. So typical problems of not able to simulate a problem in lower environments will reduce with that. Right. Yeah. So that's how these two IPs are created, and something that we have got SAP certified. I already talked about different IPs that we have certified and some of them that we are getting certified, but very specifically these two IPs. And then how now let's recollect how we understood, right? How that overall experience get enhanced, right? So let's quickly run through this flow so that you'll basically understand that how these two the spec solutions work in spoke and gear fashion to help the overall cycle run as we need, right? So business user needs help. This is where now first Infosys Business Assist comes into picture. Remember that this solution typically helps providing suggestions to business users. That's a step one, where it tries to give suggestions to business users so that they themselves can solve problems. You don't need to go to SME or IT for something which is within their control. They can solve the problems themselves. So if they are able to solve the problems, these problems they look at and see what is something that they can do as an action, right? Some of the actions could result into going into IA. So now we got some suggestions. We are getting into IA. We saw the IA demo where we converse with it, and it will take necessary action, either providing insight from SAP or taking actions back into SAP, right? So they'll take these actions back into SAP system, and that will solve their problem. So we have eliminated the problem going to the IT system. They themselves are able to solve that self-help, self-service, and that's closed, right? But that's a happy path. What if it's not that way? What these suggestions are not that helpful? What the user is new to all these suggestions? They can still go ahead and raise a ticket, right? So now Infosys Business Assist comes into the picture, which will help in creating the ticket. And then that ticket can go into either two modes. It can go into a uh, self heal mode, which basically along with IEA can do an assisted automation or a background automation, or it can go into looking at an IT expert trying to understand the problem and providing the resolution. Right? So that is how the overall, so that's the last avenue, right? You can understand that it's the last avenue. So the overall MTTR, the time to resolve or time to response to business problem gets crunched. It's drastically reduced with the help of this solution. Okay, so these are some of the uh, 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 key points to this solution. It's basically self-help, self-service, and we try to bring more of in-app assistance for the business so that, uh, by the way, be it SAP GUI, be it the Fiori application, it doesn't matter. It's very similar in nature. Though as shown right now from GUI perspective, it's similar for the Fiori as well. And make it conversational and on the go. Right? So these are some of the key uh, uh, principles for our digital experience journey. Right? So that is how it is. Yeah, I think with that, we come to an end. Exactly 45 minutes. I basically open it for question and answers. If there are any last minute points, Palni, you want to add, we can do
No,
that.
perfectly fine, that's fine. Good, thank you, brilliant. So just to summarize that, Infosys Business Assistant, Infosys Enterprise Assistant, these are the two tool sets out of the whole host of things what we have to bring in a next generation experience for our business users, for our clients' business users. Over to you, Mukesh, back if any questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking us through both the presentation as well as the demo. As always, the first set of questions that come to mind whenever we are looking at a partner solution is how is it licensed? What is the metric? And yeah.
Okay, so this solutions typically are built for our AMS engagement. So we keep in mind that whatever our customers we have today acquired, we provide them at a as a differentiator from our side with a very small cost, right? So it's a very small cost that we give to them for all these different pathways that we visualize. It's our intention is to deliver these pathways with the help of this solution. It's not in a SaaS model. It's deployed into the customer environment, and depending on how customer wants to use it, be it with us, without us, they can still use the solution with the software license agreement that we sign, and they can continue using it.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, what you're trying to tell me is that this product is only available for customers whom Infosys supports from an AMS perspective.
Absolutely, as of now, yes.
Okay, so that brings me to the next question then.
That doesn't. But sorry to interrupt, but that doesn't mean that these solutions cannot be looked at independently. But as of now, the model is yet to evolve on how we do that. However, these are primarily, as of now, for the customers or engagements that we work with.
Okay, thanks. So one of the significant challenges when it comes to, or not challenges, but one of the things that are critical when it comes to assistance like what you've showcased today is the breadth of topics that they can address. Usually what we have seen is there is one for one particular topic that can go deep. But when you want to do a variety of tasks, that becomes a little more difficult. So the question that I have is the following. How wide can this assistance be used in terms of what kind of different issues can this be used for? And number two is one of the things that is super critical in this scenario is the data on which the model is trained on, right? So which means that how big was the data, and what kind of training have you put this algorithm through to ensure that what it suggests and what it does when it comes to self-heal. I'll come back to self-heal in a bit, but otherwise also, what level of data training has been done for this model so that what it throws up is relevant most of the times. And how relevant is it? Do you have a percentage in terms of how many times is the ticket closed or the conversation closed just by engaging with the assistant?
Okay, so so the first question where you asked about how do we make it usable, or what is the depth that we can look at, or depth or breadth we can look at. So typically this will also have limitations going into a variety of solutions, right? What we have to see is what are my critical processes that I want to achieve or target. I think that is where we want to focus it rather than trying to train it for everything. So that is what even we feel that it is supposed to happen, rather than going into a lot of breadth, go into the depth. Right? So how do I enhance it further into driving a particular process? And typically, this is very much built for SAP products, right? So if you look at an enterprise-wide solution, that's where I think solutions like Infosys NIA or it integrates with conversational AI. So you have to integrate some enterprise-wide solutions so that the focus of IA stays onto SAP, right? Nothing more than SAP. It does not go beyond SAP into saying I'll do success factor related stuff and so on. So that is how this has been done. In terms of training, what we have seen is there are a lot of solutions that ask for minimum of 50 utterances per intent, right? For us, we have seen that very few utterances are enough to address a particular intent, and we have seen that working very well. One of the automotive company recently deployed 60 different conversations with IA, and they have seen huge drastic change in number of on those particular 60 processes that they have deployed this particular solution. So did I cover all the points? Yeah.
Just to add, Mukesh, on this, the percentage success, what you have seen is about, in fact, the solution set has a tracker in terms of how many questions were properly answered, how many questions were incomplete, etc. Right? There's an inbuilt tracker in terms of like the efficiency of the the assistance. And then also there's an admin panel, so through which also we kind of learn what kind of additional questions come, and that learning also comes in based on the past transactions. So based on our experience, we have seen about 70 to 80% it was able to answer, mostly able to provide assistance. The number one reason being that this is very purposeful, very focused topics. So it's not like that's why we are not calling it as a chatbot, right? So the user knows for specific instances or specific scenarios in which they should approach IEA, right? So it's very kind of boundarized in terms of the solution, and hence we are able to reach about 80% of responses proper completed in response intents. Yeah, that's how it is.
Thanks, Palani, and thanks, Amey. So I'm assuming that it is exactly the same with the the self-heal process as well. So very, very clearly articulated, very defined SAP processes where self-heal can work, right?
So
Not in too many scenarios, I would assume.
correct, correct. So there are two parts to it. So one is where we say assisted healing. Self-heal is something that will happen through things like live enterprise automation bots or something of that sort, wherein IA will just request it, right? So there are two or three things coming into picture. Not IA is just a requester, and uh, uh, the automation engine is something that is going to service it. So in terms of understanding what has to be self-heal, for example, in the case that I showed, wherein we know that the payment is not been unlocked, that's where, or the downstream systems have not uh, uh, been synchronized, is something that has been understood by IA. However, uh, the fixing is something done by the automation engine, not by the IA. So IA is just going to request the right automation uh, bot that is going to, help with the problem or resolve the problem.
And do you have many bots that you have created for many different scenarios? And what happens when the UI, the SAP UI changes? Let's say, for example, there's an upgrade. What happens then? Do you have to reconfigure them, or is it built in such a way that it can automatically detect and adapt?
So what we have done, Mukesh, we have created something called as microbots. Right. So microbots uh, are the small building blocks, and when we tie them together, it creates a worker bot. Right. So we have created around 18,000 such microbots, reusable components. And the moment you feel that you have to build something out of it, you have to just drag and drop this micro units and create a workflow out of it within 5 minutes. Right. So that's the whole purpose of making these microbots robust and reusable into workflow. That's why our capacity to build bots faster and create more bots becomes very high. The part where how do we sorry, I missed the second part. What was the second part?
If it's reconfigurable, right? So just let me answer that. So basically, we do a screen element, right? We understand the screen elements. Based on that, we do automation, and hence, as long as the fields are available in the screen, that you don't need a reconfiguration. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Unless
cool.
it's not going to be GUI to Fiori drastically, as long as it's still GUI or it's still Fiori, the bot should still work because it identifies that particular field and not based on its location.
Pixels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So I also remember early in your presentation, you said that the chatbot it can work on multiple platforms or integrate with multiple platforms. If I remember correctly, I also saw their Teams, I saw WhatsApp, I saw. So
Yes.
what are all the platforms does this work with? Which means that the user can use that platform and interact with the application, right? They don't have to come to their system to interact with the bot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it can integrate with Teams, it can integrate with Skype, which Skype is now not available, but it can integrate with WhatsApp. It can integrate with your SAP's conversational AI. It integrates with Infosys NIA. So the whole gamut, WhatsApp and everything. So whole gamut it can integrate. Like I said, I showed an example where we saw that Microsoft Teams, doing a handshake, right? So that's the IA that was doing the work. Just what we saw from earlier from web-based conversational this thing. We saw that the Teams is integrated with that. So you saw the integration or conversation with the Teams, right? So, but it was IA at the back end. So the front end can be anything, any channel that customer prefers. Back end it can be IA getting called or a NIA chatbot coming into picture where there is a non-SAP world coming for action. So this interactions can happen through here and front end can always remain as Teams chat.
Okay, thanks. So we are on top of the hour. So maybe I'll allow you to take a minute to summarize what and kind of close the session today.
Sure, Mukesh. Thanks. So, just to quickly recap what we saw, we touch based on how Infosys is positioned in market through our strength and so on. I also touch base on our overall framework of Value Plus, how we visualize our next generation AMS through this solution pathways, and how we have aligned different solutions against each of these pathways. We don't rely only on something that Infosys brings in, but also what is available within the existing landscape, and how we can utilize. So we want to fill the white spaces to help customers to navigate next. And then we saw some of the solutions that we have currently got certified. They have gone into customers, how they have helped the customers, some of the visualizations on how we see that how the digital experience will overall improve with all of these solutions. So with that, I think I'll conclude here, and people can reach out to us, ask us at infosys.com if you want to ask any question.
So that was what I was about to kind of conclude with. I have already, so this is also available on LinkedIn Live. So if you just search for the session, you will find the recordings. You will have the link when I send you when you get the session as a recording as well. This will also be available on the Indus YouTube channel. You can reach out to me or admin at induscommunity.com, and I can connect you with Amey. Or if you find this session on LinkedIn, you can directly connect with Amey on LinkedIn, because I have tagged him on the post, so that it becomes that much more easier for you to kind of connect with Amey, and he can then help you direct whichever person in Infosys can actually help. So thank you so much, Amey, for taking time and sharing information about the two apps that you shared. Just so that customers know, both of them are certified by SAP. Please confirm that that's the case, right?
Yes, it's certified by SAP.
Super.
Yeah, yes. And available on the certified solution directly.
Super. So thank you so much, and have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh. Thanks for learning.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.